My name is Noah Bush. We're sitting here at Vintage Wine Bar in Tulsa, Oklahoma, downtown. I've got a couple of other restaurants and bars, Saturn Room, Tiki Bar, downtown as well, and just opened up Lofi Pizza and about to open up Ava June right next to that, which is going to be a French brasserie. So how tariffs are going to affect my business and other small businesses around the country that are selling alcohol, all your local restaurant and bar, it's going to add on a cost. The statistic is that it's about $4.50 for every dollar that's spent in, say, Spain. And it's the three-tier system that's set up for wine. And so what happens is an importer buys a bottle of wine in Spain. They then sell it to a supplier, and then that supplier then sells it to me. And through that, we've got $4 tacked onto that. So it could be a $10 bottle of wine, and you're going to have $14 tacked on top of that. So for each dollar, there's an additional $4.50 tacked onto the bottle of wine. So if it's $10, you're going to tack on an additional $14, and it'll end up being a $24 bottle of wine. If we add in the tariff, that's going to be an additional amount of money that then gets passed on to the consumer. So having these wines, these inexpensive wines that are sort of the lifeblood of the restaurant and bar industry, those kind of go away. The by-the-glass pricing that you as the consumer pays starts to gradually raise. And that's where I make so much of my margins. Food is a big deal. Make a lot of money in food, but there's a lot of labor wrapped up in that. I can pop open a bottle of wine, sell it by the glass, and all I have to do is have a server open it and pour it for somebody. That is where I think a lot of people don't realize where the money is in restaurants and bars. And it's vital to restaurants and bars to keep the cost of the food down, to keep the cost of the other beverages down. We need those inexpensive, high-quality products coming from Europe. Or sort of the logic is that people will start buying more American wine, right? It's not just me that relies on those lower margin wines to sort of make money on and push them out. American wine is expensive, American wine is high real estate. Workers get paid more. And so that all gets built into a bottle of American wine. Importers and distributors that are selling wine, they've got a vast portfolio of American, New World, and European wines. If that price goes up on European wines, that affects how much American wine they can sell as well, because they've got to make their margins as well. So it's more than just this one-size-fits-all sort of tariff. It really is going to start affecting all the small businesses around town and everybody else's pocketbook. Because again, like I said, that cost is going to get pushed on to the consumer. There is a big question mark on what the tariff is going to be sectioned out on. And, as a small business owner, it's a concern to me, because it could really affect me in that side and other small businesses. We had the tariffs last time in the last Trump administration, and some of my suppliers kind of shouldered that added cost to keep prices low for us. And then to some extent, I did it for my customers to not change the pricing too much. But at a certain point, it doesn't make business sense to do that. And so we eventually just pass that on to the consumers. And really what that ends up doing is it makes people want to drink that product less. And again, that is what sort of keeps these operations going. There are restaurants and bars closing all over the U.S. right now. Inflation's been difficult. Labor's been difficult. insurance and rents have been skyrocketing all over the nation. And so it just keeps getting harder and harder, and this is just another added burden that could be really detrimental to restaurants across the U.S. Yeah, I will say that I am very optimistic. You know, I want to see if something will work, you know, but, you know, from everything that I hear from the people that are smarter than me is that this is going to be really detrimental to my businesses. So it worries me. And I do think that maybe there's a moment here where the people in charge can take a hard look at the businesses that it's actually affecting, and maybe make some smart choices to keep the small business and the lifeblood of America going.
So I'm Wes Alexander. I'm the Director of Marketing and Sales here at Marshall Brewing Company. And we've been looking at, preparing for, and thinking about proposed trade tariffs. You know, we're in a global economy, there's no doubt about that. And, you know, beer is an agricultural product. And we source the best ingredients to make craft beer from all over the world. Whether that's, you know, hops and malt from Germany, sometimes kegs from Germany. But, you know, essentially every component of beer comes from a global economy. Could be the can, could be the can lid, could be the holder for the cans. You know, there's some componentry. Outside of that, of course, there's the transportation of all of those things. You know, so we're not unaffected if the price of gas goes up somewhere and it needs to be imported, and you know, everything has to get on a truck or a train to get anywhere. So some of these things that we're thinking about with the proposed tariffs. Other things that I think probably would come to mind in the beer industry especially would be import beer. Import beer has been a growth category in the overall category of beer the last several years. Probably most viewers would remember that about 2 years ago, Modelo overtook Bud Light as the #1 selling beer in the United States of America. Well, that beer would see a proposed 25% trade tariff. So what does that mean? And I think it's important for consumers when they're thinking about, you know, what a tariff does, that you have to understand that small businesses especially can't absorb those costs. They've got to get passed on, meaning that you're going to see that at the shelf price. In the case of beer that's imported, you've got an importer who's going to take that, you know, 25% proposed tariff and then take a margin up above that, mark that price up to a distributor who's going to take a margin. You know, everybody gets paid in the middle. Well, that's going to multiply that 25%. That's just the way the business is. So for simple, you know, example, if you're spending $1 on an item, it's not that it's just going to be $1.25 now. It's that item would be significantly more than that, and it could in fact double in some cases. So lots of things to think about. You know, for us here at Marshall Brewing Company, we have worked since the pandemic to try and source some things closer to home. I think as a lot of folks would recognize that we have a strong love and passion for lager beer. And that we have been working to source more and more of our grain locally in the United States of America. So that we're not as affected by shipping problems and or tariff issues. So, you know, in that respect, I feel comfortable, but every single item that we have, you know, you can't, you need a certain, you know, German hop to make a beer, you know, it's hard to swap those things out. So these are all things that we're concerned about. Now, I think it's fair to say, just like there's a government shutdown, allegedly, you know, every time there's a budget or a debt ceiling, most of the times these things don't come to pass. Either way, though, we've got to be concerned about it and plan for it. Yeah, so, you know, I mean, the internal conversations on pricing with beer are, you know, there are thresholds we believe in the marketplace. Can a 6-pack of lager beer be $25 on the shelf? the answer to that is no. If it were to reach that stage, that would be absolutely devastating. This is a far-flung example that I'm using here. But, some of the concern that we have on our end is, what if we are seeing increases on our cost of goods that would push us beyond a threshold of what is reasonable for a consumer to expect and or willing to pay for a price of beer. Now that we would have to absorb some of that, So, yeah, all sorts of plans have to be made to look at these things far in advance and to have an idea. Competitively speaking, you wonder what does happen if tariffs hit and all of a sudden Mexican lagers and German lagers and beers from all the great brewing cultures of the world are significantly more expensive. Does that equal an uptick in craft beer for people looking for quality lagers? Are they going to go a little bit more local? If you want my 2 cents, I hope you're already doing that. To be perfectly honest, supporting the local economy is one of the best ways to build a strong economy. That being said, though, there is no escaping that we're in a global economy, that every business will be affected to some degree by tariffs.